is one thing toxic people cannot use against you. It is not your anger. It is not your arguments. It is not your truth. It is your quiet. Alan Watts often pointed to this strange power of nothingness. When you stop feeding a thing with your energy, it loses its form. It becomes hollow. Toxic people live on reaction. They need you loud. They need you disturbed. They need you emotionally open so they can reach in and pull the strings. But the moment you become still, really still, something breaks in their system. They are prepared for your rage. They are prepared for your tears. They are not prepared for a calm they cannot move. Silence cannot be negotiated with. It does not argue. It does not explain. It does not try to prove anything. It just is. And in simply being, it exposes everything. What I want to give you now are quiet shifts, not dramatic speeches, not big confrontations, 7 silent ways of being that remove you from the game entirely. Because the real victory is not winning the fight. It is refusing to play at all. First, you watch everything and feed nothing. Most people think the opposite of reacting is suppressing. They try to shut their feelings down. That is not what we are doing here. Alan Watts spoke often about the one who watches, the part of you that can see thoughts, feelings, and chaos without becoming any of them. Toxic people are always looking for the hook. They throw out comments to see what grabs you. They make small digs, subtle jokes, strange questions. They are not random. They are mapping you. Every time you explode, they learn your buttons. Every time you explain, they learn your weak spots. So you change the pattern. You still notice what they say. You still feel the sting. But instead of lunging at the bait, you stay behind your eyes and you watch. You notice the tone. You notice the timing. You notice how they always strike when you are tired, rushed, or vulnerable. You see the pattern and you choose not to answer it. On the outside, it looks like you just did nothing. On the inside, you just took back control. Because when you are the watcher, their game becomes obvious. And what is obvious loses its power. Second, you stop arguing and quietly take your energy off the table. You cannot reason someone out of a role they are enjoying. A toxic person is not confused. They are invested. Alan Watts compared some arguments to trying to wake someone who is pretending to sleep. They hear you. They simply do not want to get up. So you stop shaking them. You do not write long messages. You do not repeat your point in different words. You do not stay up at night, composing perfect comebacks in your head. You simply recognize the moment the conversation is no longer honest, and you withdraw. You answer in shorter lines. You refuse the bait. You let the discussion drop without a dramatic announcement. Your nervous system feels the difference. Instead of spinning in circles, it finally gets to stand still. Quietly, inside, you say to yourself, I do not explain myself to people who are committed to misunderstanding me. There is no big scene, no slammed door, just a slow, steady closing of the tap. Energy is your currency. The less you spend trying to convince them, the richer you become. Third, you create distance and let space do the talking. You do not heal in the room where you are constantly being injured. Toxic people need access. They need to be close enough to watch your face change when they say certain things. They need to be in your phone, in your plans, in your daily routines. So you make a quiet adjustment. You answer slower. You are suddenly less available for calls. You sit at a different desk. You take longer to reply. You politely decline invitations that you used to accept automatically. You do not make a big announcement. You just move your body away from the fire. Alan Watts often described the way muddy water clears when you leave it alone. Your life is the same. When you step back from constant disturbance, What is true begins to settle at the bottom, and what is not begins to float away. From a distance, you can finally see the pattern clearly. From a distance, their chaos stops feeling like your responsibility. And from their side, something unnerving happens. They cannot reach you in the same way. The old buttons no longer sit right under their hand. They feel it. They do not always name it, but they feel that access is fading. That is your quiet boundary. Fourth, you remain kind, but you no longer bend. Kindness does not mean being available to everyone all the time. That is not kindness. That is fear. Toxic people are always waiting for you to snap so they can say, "See, you are the problem." So you refuse that script. You keep your voice calm. You keep your words simple. You keep your behavior clean. You say no without being cruel. You leave the room without slamming the door. You choose short, clear responses instead of long emotional essays. You are not doing this to win them over. You are doing it to stay in integrity with yourself. Alan Watts pointed out that softness is not the opposite of strength. Real strength is the ability to stay soft without collapsing. Your calm exposes their storm. Your steady tone makes their drama obvious. You do not need to tell anyone who they are. You simply stand in who you are, and the contrast speaks for you. Fifth, you stop chasing justice and let consequence handle what you cannot. There is a secret fantasy many people have. The moment when the toxic person finally understands what they did, finally apologizes, finally admits everything. Waiting for that moment keeps you tied to them. Alan Watts said that life has its own balance. Not always in the way we imagine, not always on our schedule. You cannot control if or when a person becomes aware of themselves. You can control whether you keep drinking poison in the hope that one day they will feel sick. So you stop rehearsing speeches in your mind. You stop checking if they are suffering. You stop hoping they will see your worth. You bring the focus back to your own life, your body, your sleep, your work, your small, quiet joys. Your silence here is not avoidance. It is trust. Trust that you do not need to carry the role of judge and executioner. Trust that the way they move in the world will return to them in some form. You do not have to watch it. You do not have to wait for it. You are already busy with something more important. Healing. Sixth, you decide your peace is more valuable than being liked. Toxic people sense your hunger to be seen as good. They know you do not want anyone to think badly of you. So they use that. A look of disappointment, a sigh, an accusation that you are selfish or cold. If your deepest need is to be seen as kind, they can move you with a single word. So you change your priority. Alan Watts warned about the trap of living as a performance for other minds. The more you try to adjust yourself to every opinion, the further you drift from any real center. You quietly decide, being at peace in my own skin matters more than being approved of in theirs. So you stop over-explaining. You stop trying to convince them you are not a bad person. You stop sending long clarifying messages so they will not be upset. Instead, you make your choices, and you let their opinion fall where it falls. You might feel fear at first, a shaking in the body. That is normal. You are breaking an old habit of self-betrayal. But with every quiet no you give, your spine grows a little straighter. Your inner ground becomes a little more solid. Approval was the leash. You just slipped your neck out of it. Seventh, you change without announcement and let them feel the absence of the old you. Toxic people rely on the version of you they trained. The you who answers fast. The you who explains everything. The you who feels guilty for resting. So you retire that version. You do not send a memo. You do not warn anyone. You simply begin to live as the person you were always meant to be. Quieter, more private, less available for drama, more available for your own life. You read more. You move your body. You sit in silence without needing to fill it. You invest in people who feel safe, warm, and consistent. As Alan Watts loved to say, the deepest shifts do not happen in noise. They happen when you are alone with yourself and finally stop running. You do not owe anyone a tour of your transformation. You do not have to defend why you grew. You do not have to justify why you stepped back. You just are. While they are busy trying to analyze what happened to you, you are busy living a life where their analysis no longer matters. That is the quiet victory, because in the end, toxic people do not truly fear your anger. They fear the day you realize you do not need them, the day you stop responding, the day you stop explaining, the day you choose your own inner stillness over their endless storm. Stay calm, stay observant, stay a little mysterious. In that space of silence, you become something they cannot reach. You become free.